Nathan, you can go live now.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to our webinar today on UK Construction Week Online. And if you're new to this platform, welcome. I just wanted to basically talk you through how to use the platform briefly before I hand over to today's panel. But we're looking at a booming industry lacking in diversity and image today. So a really important topic, one we've talked about a lot at UK Construction Week, and one I think post-pandemic we need to be very conscious of. So before we get into that, I'm just to talk about this platform. You can get involved in today's chat and webinar by using the live discussion boxes on your screen. Please do that, and what we'll do is pass all those through to our panel to make sure that they can answer those for you as they come to the Q&A section of this webinar today. And obviously it's a good chance for you to chat to colleagues on there as well, so please use that. On to today, and I'm going to introduce Clive Holland firstly, who's going to be our host today, and we've got an amazing panel. So welcome, Clive. How are you?
I'm very well, Nathan. How are you?
I'm very good. So Clive, how's life at Fix Radio? You present a daily show on there, which I know is really popular. So how's that been going for you for the last few months and weeks?
Yeah, I've been with them actually since 2018, and it's growing constantly. I mean, it's really growing massive now. I mean, the influx of messages we get to each show. I do Monday through Thursday, 2 till 4, but it's just generally growing apace. So it's fantastic, and we're going to be broadening the DAB range as well soon. So that'll be even better. So people don't have to, use the app or whatever. But yeah, it's been going really well.
Brilliant. So today's webinar is in conjunction with the Construction Helpline. So Clive, I'm going to hand over to you and to introduce our panel, starting with Uma from Construction Helpline, and then I'll come back at the end to wrap up. But I'm looking forward to listening to this debate.
Thank you, Nathan. And also your messages as they come in, we'll try and get them over to our guests as well as fast as I can. So do bear with me. So we're looking at a booming industry, of course, but still lacking in diversity and image. So along with the Construction Helpline and in association with UK Construction Week, our panel today are Uma Mansour, CEO of Construction Helpline. Uma is the CEO, as I say, of Construction Helpline, and one of the UK's leading providers in CSCS courses across the nation. The courses help with wealth of construction and the built environment, trades become qualified, and site compliance as well to industry standards. We also have Amos Simbo. Amos is the founder and chairman of BPIC, having worked in the construction industry since completing studies in mechanical engineering. Amos now runs an M&E, so mechanical engineering consultancy, with the construction commercial fit-out market, seeing what it takes to succeed in a competitive commercial environment. Also, Rebecca Lovelace as well. Rebecca is the founder and chief dot joiner at Building People, a web-based platform enabling people to find a career or to find career opportunities for employers to engage in a more diverse range of talent. Rebecca brings expertise in maximising the social impact of construction projects for individuals and disadvantaged local communities. Victoria Hills. Victoria is the Chief Director at RTPI at the Royal Town Planning Institute, and has 20 years experience and expertise in planning, transport and organisational leadership and development. She is passionate about planning great livable spaces with an unrivaled insight into London's governance. And finally, but by no means least, Christina Dimitriou, who is a tipper driver bang on the front line. So I'll be talking to all of those very shortly. So welcome to everyone. First of all, we shall start with Uma. It's always great to see you again, Uma. Now, as a training institute which helps the construction sector develop careers for workers, what are you hoping to achieve in the very near future for those who you train and the opportunities which can be presented to them? You are working with the likes of BPIC, and given your amazing work lately, including partnerships, do you hope to develop more to help tackle the issues faced around diversity and inclusion?
Thank you, Clive, and thank you everyone joining us together. Such a great panel, and thank you for being with us. Construction Helpline has been there over 10 years. My background is accountancy, but I moved into this sector having some experience working with real estate and construction environment. I moved in, I started the training business, and there were two things I was finding quite challenging and worrying. One was the competent workforce. There were so many things the government and institution like CITB were coming around doing and seeing that how competent workforce can be there. But the second part that was also not looked into, which is now quite worrying in terms of numbers. If we look at it, just over 7% is sort of a BAME workforce that's actually in construction in the UK. These figures are staggering and sort of highlight that there is a significant inequality within the construction sector. As a Construction Helpline, we've trained over 200,000 construction workers over the period of last 6 years, from health and safety to also construction skills, different trades. I have recently started to work with BPIC, also trying to partnership with Women in Construction to promote somehow that how we can participate as Construction Helpline by providing free courses to members of BPIC, and also to see that if we can work with women in construction by bringing more female workforce into this sector. I came in to find this is an amazing industry, and I can run a brilliant training organization and have a successful business. But now my perspective is sort of slightly changed, not just to have a successful business, but also contribute towards the industry by highlighting these facts, most importantly about inequality towards the BAME community, and also towards the gender inequality as well within construction. It's a brilliant industry. It can provide so much to the economy, but why are we not looking into this? So now I'm glad that we are here talking about it, but at the same time, this needs to be started from the top. Bigger organizations and a government needs to come in and say, okay, well, this is what we are going to implement in terms of whether it is about giving tenders or anything. There has to be some sort of conditions that are there that diverse workforce come around, and that is a solution towards what we say skill shortage as well within this industry. If we address these issues, it will bring skill shortage, and also the impression towards more of a younger generation that they don't like construction or think about that it's about getting their hands dirty. It will give a better impression to them as well. So yeah, from Construction Helpline perspective, it is not just about training, it's more about inclusion and bringing and giving back to the industry by partnering with institutes like or forums like BPIC and Women in Construction and others. I would like to join in and contribute.
It's interesting you say that, Uma, because I think that schools are the thing where we should be talking about diversity as well, because you've got all the diversity you like in schools and colleges. And I think this is something important. When I go around schools and if I talk about media, the room is packed. If I go in to talk about construction, I've got so few because people think it's a dirty job. They don't, it's amazing, really. I mean, I was talking on the BBC about it this week. To try and attract these people is so difficult because we've got such a massive shortage in general. By 2025, we're going to be short of thousands in the construction industry. So it's an important job that you're doing, but it's a battle. It's a battle for sure.
Yeah. I think the only thing I know that there is no quick solution to this, but it's just keep working towards this. That's the only solution. Keep acknowledging it, keep working towards it. That's what I think. And this is also sort of perseverance that needs to come into this.
Well, Uma, we're right behind you. So well done. Amos, now, if we can move to Amos Simba. Now, he is a Black professional in construction. It's great to have you this time around. Amos, great to see you. Now, How have BPIC been a driving force in encouraging people of ethnic minorities to get into the built environment landscape? Have you had encouragement from partners such as Construction Helpline in aid of your journey? What was your journey?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've had a lot of help from all different angles, since we launched. And yeah, me personally, my journey in the industry has been, I would say, it's been relatively okay in terms of people that I worked with, and starting up BPIC network was essentially to sort of widen up that sort of the access to the industry and people connecting. It's some of these things that can solve these issues of things like just meeting people, networking. It's such a people industry, the industry that we're in, and different circles, etc., etc. So it's been really helpful. Coming in, for example, and learning from different people. I've been on forums, panels, like Victoria. And I know Rebecca at building people with the work they're doing. As much as we're starting up, our keen interest is to sort of collaborate and work with everyone. It helps kind of bring a big sort of influence to the industry, and for us that's really that's really the aim to say how can we all collaboratively put everything together, and I think based on what building people do, it's essentially that strategy of if we work together, we're all in different spaces. The built environment, construction is massive. And there's just so many different forums that you can be part of. But if we can all sort of join up the forces and bring everything together, it essentially simplifies the solution to this to inclusion. And you got to understand that minorities, and not just minorities, but because it's a good there's actually a few people in the country that are like black and ethnic minorities. So, and then fewer even in construction. So helping everyone to be joined up. I was trying to calculate the other day how many ethnic minorities are actually in construction. So I do the maths over the weekend. It's not a lot. I came up with the wrong answer. I'm going to say it, but it's not a lot of people. If you look generically, but then there's bigger places like London, Midlands, and up North Bristol where you got bigger chunks. So it's looking at how we can do. So for me personally, I would say us as a group, our strategy has always been to be open to everyone. You could utilize whatever we can, be it with the builders themselves, the contractors, the government institutes, the government itself, etc., etc. So how can we all work together? So the reception has been it's been good. And I guess maybe it is come with the time as well, where this is all on the agenda at the moment, etc., etc. But for us, it's good, and it's trying to hone in on that collaboration cloud.
The thing is, though, we're talking about a booming industry still lacking in diversity. Since you've been in the industry, have you seen a good progression, a slow progression? What is going to be the answer?
Yeah, yeah, it's like the whole diversity thing. I mean, the industry lacks it, but nobody sort of takes ownership of it in a way, so it becomes somebody's problem, But that somebody's just like like an invisible person. So no one actually says it's actually for me to solve, So we say the industry lacks diversity, as if the industry knows. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm making sense to say. As if the industry is gonna say, okay, yeah, I like diversity, I'm gonna do something about it. There isn't really that sort of, no one is accountable for it, right? So it lacks, number one, because of that, right? That nobody actually sees it. Everyone thinks they're just chipping away, or yeah, we're doing what we can, or it's somebody else's fault. It's a bit like the skills shortage. It's like it's the school's fault, they're not bringing enough students for us, so it's their fault. So, but nobody actually takes that accountability. So, I mean, with the institutes that we've been working with, we're starting to see a bit more of that, because some influence is coming perhaps from outside the industry itself. From in the private sector, for example, we'll probably be driven by the actual investors themselves, who are now demanding to see a lot of inclusion now. So they're massive driving force that whoever's building is now needing to have to address that. And then you have perhaps a bit of force coming from let's say in the public sector, government. I'm not sure how stringent it is, but some of it's coming there. So I guess it's driven by the industry driving forces, and it's improving these days because of what's actually happening outside the industry. But in the industry itself, I wouldn't say there's anybody sort of getting grips to it and saying it's my problem, because the industry is shaped up in so many different ways. And for us, we try and be in those spaces where we can have influence. There's so many industry bodies that are like scattered across, and like I said, there's a public and public and private sector which operate slightly differently. So I'd say I've seen a bit of movement. The issues now being spoken about openly, because you got to realize things with like diversity. It's to do with race, so sometimes it's quite a sensitive topic for people to speak about, and you got to allow people to speak openly without having to be condemned or anything. And it's starting to be spoken about a lot more now, for people, and starting to be more open. But again, it's also coming with time. So personally, I'll say it has improved. I mean, years ago, I didn't even know there was an issue with inclusion. Right? It might sound funny that me saying that, but I just thought it was normal, right? I just thought this is how it is. So I never actually put thought to say, actually, do you know what, it could get better. I just thought it was normal until, recently I actually start, digging deep into it. Sometimes you just focus on your own career, but then you start hearing from other, some of your colleagues that the struggle they're having in different workplaces, and they start appreciating a lot. So a lot of it's got to give you perspective as well. So I'd say yes, I've seen a lot lately, especially with what doing Beeping Network. A lot of initiatives coming more. Clive, so the answer is yes to that.
Well, that is a positive, and I'm just hoping that the words of everyone today don't just disappear into the ether, and they just will bounce around and resonate with people. Otherwise, it ends up being a waste of time. So Rebecca, over to you now, Rebecca Lovelace from Building People. Building People essentially are direct employers or direct employers to consider diverse groups of potential employees. Have you seen a larger uptake in this initiative as we move through the times? Are things changing?
I think I'm probably just going to step back slightly, Clive, and just answer this slightly circuitously, because what you said just before this was you hope a lot of this just doesn't go into the ether, and that's why we created Building People, because there's a sense of absolute frustration. As an industry, we are hugely fragmented. I think we all know, nobody disputes that. We are so good at convening roundtables, writing reports and saying, yes, we must collaborate, but actually it's their responsibility. So answering your question, we set up Building People. So 2017, it was an idea, spoke to lots of people, said, wouldn't it help to have one place in industry where people can find this multitude of opportunity? So if you're looking for a bursary, you're looking for work experience, you want to find training, maybe you're looking for somebody that has PPE for women, or you want support as somebody who's LGBTQ+ within the workplace. So this is where Building People came from, is let's help the individual find the multitude of opportunities that are out there. And the flip side of that then is let's help the employers find these individuals. So when I started 20 years ago, I started by taking an individual and effectively beating up the supply chain to say, give this person some work experience. And I saw that it was actually incredibly simple, that over here there's a skill shortage, over here there are people that either want to get into the industry or are already in the industry but they're struggling to progress. It's the bit in between that's lacking. So is it improving? I mean, I would love to say yes, but if it was, why are we standing here talking about what we all do and what we all need to do? Because what it does come down to, in certainly my experience, we launched our aggregating and connecting platform at UK Construction Week in 2019. So we provide a place for employers to post opportunities, so work experience, apprenticeships through to jobs, for everybody to share events and activities, to share resources, to find organisations that can help, people that can answer a question, mentors. We launched all of this in say 2019. And okay, we weren't quite predicting a global pandemic would slow things down. But I really do believe if it were improving that quickly and that easily, Building People would now be a widely adopted industry collaborative framework. Because As a not-for-profit, all we do is we sit in the middle. So we help people to find what already exists. I think it's improving in pockets. I'm loving seeing Christina driving away, when you can see this sort of visibility role models. There is improvement, but the industry is huge. And for me, the big challenge is it's not just construction. We use the language built environment, and we have people doing work that covers property and real estate and others in just one trade and one profession. And Amos, you absolutely nailed it. And thank you for the positive words about building people. We do need this real accountability and this leadership. And so what we try and do is something that's bottom up. So rather than just saying, yeah, we're going to wait for the great leaders to tell us what to do and to put things in place, we're saying, actually, we recognize what's available. We recognize what's out there. We recognize it's not joined up. Let's just simplify user journeys. If I can, I just want to tell just a little quick illustration. If you type into a search engine, and I haven't done this since before Christmas, but women into construction, when I last did this, say a few months ago, it had 5 answers on the first page. One was a publication, one was an event, one was the organisation Women into Construction, another I think was a podcast, and then there's a link to Go Construct, to CITB Careers website. On that website, it had, I think, another 9 organisations that work with women in construction. And we found almost 90. The latest one we found is Muslim females in architecture. So unless we join together, unless we actually do commit to collaborate, but to practically deliver these actions, we're still going to be here talking as we are today, and it's still going to be going out into the ether. So let's stop talking. That's my challenge for today, Clive.
Let's stop talking, but we need to talk. I think we need to get the message out there, particularly, as I've already mentioned, at school level. There could be kids at the age of 14 that just don't relate to a lot of the education that they're getting. And it'd be great. I mean, in the day, I said this before, I was around when Noah launched his boat, and we had things like, metal workshops, wood workshops. We built engines and all that sort of thing. We actually had hands-on for everyone. Now there isn't that opportunity so much. But, we have lots of collegiates now that are appearing with construction colleges and etc. There should be people on that front line. I send that message out, but we need more help to be able to do that, to bring this diversity in. That's
needs to be coordinated, joined up and collaborative. I absolutely agreed.
Now we are getting messages in. I don't know if you've already taken a look at that one that we're getting so far. I think we'll try and get to those a little bit later on. Let's just go through everyone first. So thank you for that, Rebecca. Victoria Hills. Now, Victoria, with your wealth of experience in planning and the built environment, have you seen the sector evolve into a diverse group of employees, should we say? And how do you see the future landscape on this issue, given the situation we faced, particularly over the last 15 months with COVID and everything else?
Well, firstly, thank you very much to Construction Helpline for reaching out and bringing me into this conversation this morning. I think that in itself is just worth noting that, I'm part of the planning world, and some of you may be thinking, well, what are you doing here? But actually, I think that, planning is that gateway to construction. So it's really important that we all understand where we're all coming from and where you join up. In answer to your question, Clive, I think the outlook is looking really, really positive for a number of reasons, which I'll say when I conclude what I'm going to say. In terms of how things are going, they're going all right, actually. Planners are often at the front line of engaging with the public. We've got a long way to go in all senses of diversity, but we're getting there on some fronts. But clearly there's an awful long way to go. And I agree with the sentiments. It's time to end the conversations in some respect, not end them, but let's get on with some action. And I'm a strong believer in action. I've worked for all 3 mayors of London. They've all been advocates of diversity, most latterly Mayor Khan, who pushed us on action. I was running a development corporation at Old Oak and Park Royal, at the front line of construction, you could say, but was very much charged with, what are you actually doing on diversity? Stop talking about it. I want to see your action plan. So I brought that approach into the RTPI. I joined back in 2018, and the Royal Town Planning Institute, we're a membership body, we're also a learned society. We're 107 years old, but we didn't have a vision statement on equalities. We didn't have an action plan. We corrected all of that. We now have one called Change, and it's about putting practical things in to drive forward the diversity into our pipeline of planners. But in the broader sense, this is bringing people into the built environment. And people move around in their careers now. Just because you start in planning doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to go into construction, and vice versa. And you work within a much broader range of opportunities. So as Rebecca and Uma have already said, it's about how you bring people in, and don't get parochial about, oh, we want them all for the planners, or we want them all for construction. Actually, it's bringing people into this fabulous career of the built environment. So just to give you a couple of tangible examples of how we're moving forward on this. Clearly, education and careers is really important. I never heard about planning until I was finishing up my undergraduate geography degree. Now, what happens if you never get to a degree situation anyway? How do you bring people in? Well, apprenticeships is a fabulous way of doing that. Love it or hate it, what the apprenticeship levy has done is forced employers into paying in money into a pot they've got to spend on apprenticeships. So we've got a level 4 planning technician, and we've also got a level 7 masters. And already the diversity of people coming through the apprenticeship route is fantastic. You know, it's really going to pay dividends in the longer term. We've been going out in schools for years and talking planning careers. If I was going to be critical about what we've been doing, probably like many people on the panel, we go and talk to people we know, to the places we know. And often we talk to people who look like us and are from similar backgrounds to us, because it's all rather comfortable. So we're going to shake that up with a new program called Explore, and also Balance. And Explore is going to be a work experience pilot, and very much targeted at getting planning work experience into underrepresented groups, areas of high socioeconomic deprivation, high diversity. And we're also going to have Balance, which is build a legacy and new community equality. I came up with that one myself, but basically that is a long word for it, saying let's map out where the top growth spots are for commercial development and housing. Let's map out where the highest indices of deprivation are, and let's map out the highest areas of diversity. And then we'll come up with the top 10 schools we want to go to in each English region and each nation. We're across the devolved nations also, and we're going to get into those schools. Now, we haven't mapped it yet, but I'm guarantee you, Clive, we probably don't go there already. And that tells a story in itself, that we need to get out and start telling the story of what a fabulous career you could have in the built environment. Because where else could you be involved in working on helping to solve climate action or climate change through taking climate action, driving forward net zero, but also health inequalities? Just look at the report that Greater Manchester issued last week. You know, if you live in Manchester currently, you're 25% more likely to die from COVID than where I'm currently sat in North East London. This is crazy. This is 2021. You're not going to solve that alone through the NHS. You're going to solve it through healthy places, placemaking, access to jobs, access to good quality homes. And that involves all of the construction industry, including planning. So I think we've got a really attractive story here to tell about the next generation coming through. Who wouldn't want to work in a career like this? You know, and it is a vocation. You can move across from architecture, engineering, construction, planning, design. You may not think of yourself as wanting to go into construction, but let's face it, we're not going to solve climate change, and we're not going to deliver on net zero unless we're building the right stuff in the right places in the right way. And the construction industry in its broadest sense, which includes planning, can offer you all of that. So, I mean, that's really why I'm feeling so positive, jumping right to the end there. But I think, you know, where we start as a professional body is we need to be as representative as the communities we're building for, you know. And it's not good enough that the majority of chief planning officers in London are white. That's not good enough. Half of them should be from BAME. It's not good enough that every single major planning consultancy, and I know it because I've written to all their chief executives, all of them are men. That's not good enough either. So we've got some way to go here in the top. But I think some of this grassroots action in schools, in apprenticeships, is going to pay dividends. But just to pick up finally on the other point, it is going to take leadership and being honest and joining the dots and working with others. So I'm really delighted that you've invited the planners to join this conversation here, because as I said right at the start, construction and planning. Well, planning is the gateway to construction. So look forward to joining the conversation as we get through this. Thank you, Clive.
You're welcome. It's fantastic, the things that you say. And just remember, well, as I say, I was doing an interview at the BBC this week, last week, should I say. I was talking about people coming into the industry. I was talking about kids and that sort of thing. But also people who may be in a job that they feel is going nowhere and they want something, a new challenge, and opening that door. And I think, there's a lady who was 44 who's a logistics. She worked for a vehicle company doing logistics and said, could I be a plumber? And I said, why not? Just if that's the change you want to make that change. If you're fed up with the job that you're in, I know it's a risk because you've got to jump out of what you know, but it's something that you can do quite comfortably. And I would encourage that. And talking of women in our industry, I love this, that we've got Christina Dimitriou up next. Christina busy driving along there, concentrating as well. Now, Christina is a tipper driver. Christina, I need you to tell us a bit of background on your story, but also about how you are accepted in our industry. And after Christina, we will get to some of the people who are sending in their messages. I promise we will throw them out to everyone.
Hey guys, so I started getting into construction when I became a truck driver. Before that, I was working with buses, so I've always drove quite large vehicles. And I was driving my bus one day and I saw a friend and he said to me, "Oh, come over to the trucks. It's fun. You'll like it." So that's how I made the transition into becoming a truck driver. And I really love it. It's somewhere that I've settled in really, really. Not easy, but I've accepted the changes because it fits with my hobbies. I'm quite tomboy, and it's just something that I'm passionate about, really. And now I'm passionate about getting more women into construction because since I've been doing it, I've realised that there's not a lot of women doing what I do, especially tipper work. Or before tippers, I was doing high abs, and there's not a lot of women doing it. Since I've been in this industry, I've not been accepted by every single person like I would have hoped, but I guess it's just something that I've got to try to change as I go.
I think as well, for you, I just want to know how people respond, how people react. So, for instance, when you're going on to a mainly, let's face it, male-dominated, still male-dominated platform, so you go onto site, what is their reaction like? How do they accept you these days? And was it a tough journey on the way?
So yeah, it's been a bit of a tough journey from my previous company. I wasn't always accepted from other staff members. I find that they automatically think that because I'm trying to break down stereotypes that I'm continuously in competition with them, and that's not the case at all. So I found that with previous employers that it could be quite challenging because people always thought that I was trying to do better than them. And where I market myself online, I get like some free stuff sometimes, like free clothes and just like little freebies. And because I was getting those things, I found that they found that I was being in competition with them. So it hasn't been great. But when I go onto sites, I find that it's usually a good response. People are quite welcoming. Yeah, people are quite welcoming on sites. It's more your co-workers that have a problem with it usually.
Well, see, the thing is, I was born of 7 older sisters, so for me, it's all power. I love it. Now, as a woman in the construction industry, do you feel that the extra obstacles must be hurdled for you in order to operate in your everyday career? I mean, it's crazy. You've talked about the issues, but how do you think that they can be suppressed moving forward? Do you think there's a chance? I mean, for me personally, I'd love you to be doing like I mean, you're big on social media and that sort of thing. So I'd love that to go into schools, as a video to that teachers could actually put out there so people can see what you actually do.
I've actually been approached by a few schools to come in and do some speaking to young women specifically. But because of COVID, I didn't have the chance to do that yet because when they approached me, it was just at the beginning of last year. So I'm hoping that in the future, I can get around to doing that. I find that if we speak about it more and we try to spread awareness for it, I think with time, it will get better.
You think so? Do you really think so? It will get better?
Yeah, I do. I think it's going to be baby steps. But if we try to change the people, the way they think, and making it, I can't explain it.
The stereotyping.
Yeah. For me, I think making little changes, like having suitable toilets for females, and just, I know it might not seem like something big to you, but where I worked at my last job, they used the female toilet, the only female, as a store cupboard, and I never had no space to do anything in there. And for women, we have like menstrual periods and stuff like that, and it might not seem like anything big to a man, but for us, that's everything, to have a nice, clean environment for us to go in and be able to do what we've got to do just once a month. And I couldn't do that, and I couldn't speak out about it. So if we started making little changes about things that will help us, I think we will get there.
They are the most basic steps. That's every manager and everyone who runs a site should make sure that that's in place. I know we have to. So that's for sure. It should be a natural thing. Sadly, that's sad to hear that it's not.
It can be really disheartening when you don't even have like basic things like that.
It's always interesting, and I love it. I love seeing you in that cab doing your thing. Now, interestingly enough, we're going to go through a few messages. This is from Rachel Jagger Thomas, who's saying that the Baker Clause still remains a challenge in terms of talking to schools around apprenticeship opportunities in building and construction, particularly for females who may not want to consider a STEM degree route. Anybody want to jump in on that one?
Could you explain what the Baker Clause is? Because we've not come across that one. That's a new one on me.
No, I think the Baker Clause is, I've heard it mentioned by certain heads. The Baker Clause was an MP who had suggested that they couldn't veer from the curriculum, the standard curriculum, where you move in without. So say, for instance, that they'd want all secondary education to follow a plan. If you actually go in there and do your talking on construction or whatever, that takes them away from the plan. That's what they think. Unless you're doing it for every school, so you visited every school, every college of a certain age group, then it's always going to be a problem. But I think that's utter tosh. I think if we're going to make baby steps, we have to start with a school. We have to start with a college. How else are you going to do that? Because you're never going to be able to phone the whole of or get in touch with the education minister and say, oh, by the way, we've got every team member going in today across the country. Impossible to do logistically.
I think, Clive, this is the absolute problem, in that there are employers that go into schools. There are individuals like Christina approached to go into schools. And Christina, hats off to you. I'm actually feeling really angry that you as an individual are doing such amazing work. 10, 15 years ago, when I was when I was on site, I remember going to get the key for the toilet, and that it should not be down to an individual to be battling all of these systems that have been in place for so far too long. You can't find PPE that fits, there aren't adequate toilets. So it's bad enough having the discrimination and the sexism, without all the other systems that just need to have that leadership to break it down. And that, Clive, this is my real frustration about the schools issue, because employers go into schools and then schools say, actually, we've had 3 construction companies come in the past few months, we don't want any more. We have charities going to schools, but it is not coordinated. And so people spend time, money, resource on creating packs to go to schools, on creating curriculum activities. So Charter Surveyors Training Trust, they have a free schools program that's available to any school that they can have. There are industry bodies that are running these programs, but they're not talking to one another. So if you're a school and you want to invite somebody in, where do you go? Where do you start? And I think this is why, and you can probably tell them it's getting more and more het up, is until we actually coordinate something together to improve the image of the industry, which won't just be done by a few nice posters and as much as we can show the brilliant role models we have, we actually have to change the reality of what it's like on site. So people can hear it's wonderful, turn up to site, have the experiences that Christina's having and say, thank you, no, not at all. So it's not easy. But until we actually approach this in a really joined up, coordinated style, it's going to keep being low impact, piecemeal, inefficient, expensive, resource heavy. So, yeah, we're going to go into schools, but we can't keep doing it individually. It's got to get so much better.
Yeah, it's very tough. I think, back in 2017, one of the pupils said to me, "Oh, my teacher said if I'm not great with my education, I'll end up on a building site." And if we still got that attitude today in the 21st century, what hope do we have? These are the people that are teaching our kids. It's mad. And I took it upon myself to actually have a word with that particular teacher, only because it wound me up big style. They could still treat people like that, and that's why we've got to get you guys with all your, nous into the school somehow, whether it's by, online that the kids can watch, or you actually visit those places if you've got the time, of course. There's also somebody asking, has anyone seen a difference post-pandemic? After all, we're supposed to be building back better. Has anybody seen a real difference? Obviously, we've still got a building company, so we're busy as hell.
Yes. If I can just jump in, I think the real difference we're seeing is that everybody is so busy. We must all seize this opportunity as we all scale up. And planning is a small part of the construction industry, but we've got a massive demand for more planners coming through, regardless of planning reform, to basically, as was put in the comments earlier, let's not miss the opportunity to remind ourselves that, diversity is absolutely got to be at the core of building back better. And we've all got to stay really, really focused as we scramble to meet this significant demand. And just to put that in, planning continues month after month. Planning portal say, last July hit all new records in number of planning applications. We just bust another record again. It's just going crazy. And we all know, you'll all know better than I will do in terms of the supply chain issues, but on the people side of it, even with modern methods of construction, all the digital economy that's coming, we're still going to need more people. So we've got to stay focused as we're scaling up. And we show no signs of let off in terms of numbers. Retention has broken records again. We're growing. We need more planners, and you're going to need, as you're scaling up the construction industry broader, this is the chance to leave no stone unturned. And there was one of the comments in the box there that said, look, is it the right thing, Victoria, to be going and targeting, areas of deprived schools? Absolutely. We need to go everywhere. All of us need to go everywhere. I agree with Rebecca's comments, but we've got this fantastic career that nobody knows about. They don't know about it, or they've been told about it in a negative way. So we've got to bring everybody in with us here. And there will be some really, really talented, bright individuals who come up with all kinds of solutions on how we're going to deliver on net zero, how we're going to build more digitally, how we're going to deliver on place-based inequalities, health inequalities, all the rest of it. But we haven't got to them yet because they're in neighbourhoods that we perhaps don't engage with and need to. So we certainly don't make any apologies for going to deprived neighbourhoods as well as wealthy neighbourhoods. We want to go to all the neighbourhoods. Everybody's welcome. Everybody's needed. There's a huge task to do.
For sure. And just going to you, Amos, if you don't mind, how are you finding it in construction these days? Are you, when you arrive to site and when you're working around various sites, what is the feedback you're getting in terms of, the diversity and, people wanting to follow your route, if you like?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix. But I just want to make a comment on what Victoria and said earlier on as well, to say it's just ridiculous. Like some of this stuff about women, toilets, etc. It's just honestly like basic stuff, and then you don't even know where to start. Like you don't even know what to say, and it's just like how is that not happening? Or you're saying all the chief planners are male, because sometimes it ends up just being like a small club that people are just doing things for each other, and it's not really about the industry at all. And it's just sometimes it's really hard to break into. If you don't sort of fit in, like you cannot fit in because you're female or all this. And then sometimes when you're talking about inclusion, about women or anything, it just sounds like you're having like a little moan, like people just actually avoiding you, because it just sounds like you're just complaining all the time. but then you complain to the wrong people, I guess. And it actually takes real leadership to people to actually be honest with themselves. Once that cycle is broken, they can start building a bit more. On sites is different, right? So a lot of the inclusion bits that we do is with the people in the offices, what they're doing, and they're looking at the overheads of the company, the structure, the strategy, and people are constantly scratching their heads, saying, "What should we do about inclusion?" And I was on one of the panels, I think, some time ago, and someone asked me to say, what's the we're looking to improve inclusion, but what's the quick fix we can do? Like, what's the quick wins? Yeah. And then I said, well, look at your preferred supplier list, for example, and try and change that, like how people are coming through. And like, oh yeah, well, that's not really a quick win, though, is it? But actually, it is. That's a quick win. Like like making posters about it, because perhaps you're expecting me to say, make a poster about it, do a little event, whatever. But actually, the quick wins are the simple things. But when you actually get to the real stuff, you get a bit of okay. But that's what actually happens. Like when companies are bringing people in, there's a certain route and mechanisms. When you actually want to change that, that's where you get people like, oh, okay, that will take a bit of time. But that's basically it. That's where the problem is,
Yeah.
and then the retention. And then you got a lot of the workforce in construction is I think a huge percentage is contractors, like freelance. But then those freelance people sometimes don't really count as your workforce, right? So the inclusion doesn't really matter when it comes to those, right? But actually it's a big part of it. So it's actually so and then they're mostly site-based as well. So people are looking at what the office staff are doing and numbers, and those numbers is where people are really working on, because that's what counts as your stuff. But then everybody else, so on site, it could literally just be the same thing, where it's really, really male dominated. And I'm talking sometimes even 100%. Inclusion is just like bits and bobs there. So on the site level, it's still got a long way to go, and it's all to do with the actual mechanism. I mean, we're starting in one place, so I would say it's moving slowly, but it's moving.
Is it moving in the right direction? You say it's moving slowly. It's got to be a forward trajectory.
Yeah, it's hard to judge. It's hard to judge, like industry wide, to be honest. But I would say, I mean, okay, give you perspective, right? We're still talking about toilets, yeah. So that gives a good perspective of everything in the world that we're talking about. Like some people are even talking about living on Mars. And we're just struggling with like this. So I don't want to sound like really negative, but it just sounds like I don't know. Like, so that gives you a bit of perspective in terms of where people actually are in terms of the standards. And for me, it's looking at the drivers, the actual drivers behind these things, to say if it's down to the client, if it's down to the investors, put the forces there and actually make everybody follow these things, because it's almost it is unacceptable in this day and age to do that. So I'll say it's inching in the right direction, and sometimes stagnant. But you got to realize the industry is massive. It's a massive industry. It's got so many driving forces, so many people in it, so many people that are not talking to each other. So the little that we can do, like Rebecca was saying, including this, by the way, it moves really forward, and we just got to look at the good things that we're doing collectively.
Well, let's hope so. Now, Victoria, I don't know if you've seen this message coming in. I don't know if you guys can see all the messages. If you see the messages that are coming in from people, I will apologise to people who, if we don't get to your message, I'm sorry, because we only have an hour on this. But I'll pick them up as we go. This one says, for you, Victoria, do kids see planning as new towns, etc., exciting, or make the dormer smaller, move it, make it redder brick or whatever? I'm trying to work that out.
I know what they mean. I know what she means. Sorry, Brian.
Yes, if you would.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I know exactly what you're talking about, and you may have seen the Secretary of State announce last week more digital planning apps and tools to precisely do, I think, what you're alluding to here. If you can digitize the back office stuff, what we would call, the things that you've alluded to, which I'll be honest, I didn't get into town planning because I wanted to do dormer window extensions, ground floor garage conversions. That wasn't what I wanted to get into do. I wanted to help save the world, and build better places. And actually, the reason I haven't said I got into planning was because I picked up a book called Women in Planning and thought, hang on a moment, there aren't any women in planning. That was the whole premise of the book, that all the environments were being designed by men. And I thought, well, that can't be right, because I might want something different to what they want, or see something different. So basically, to answer your question, I think what kids will want to do coming in is the exciting stuff. And this is about telling the story. You know, you could be involved in digital methods, designing, you could produce the first 3D passive house. You know, no one's done that one yet. You could be involved in helping us to come up with innovative ways to deliver on climate change. I mentioned climate change. Flood mitigation, major issue in construction, but no one really, you know, perhaps it's not that exciting, but it's holding us back building in places because of, you know, flooding is actually quite a big issue in the UK in 2021. And so, yes, there is an opportunity in what we call #PlanTech to digitize planning, but not digitize it all. Digitize the stuff that can be run for an algorithm, absolutely, you know, so that you'll be able to app on your phone, this is what I'm doing, tick, done. And then, you know, the next thing is for the building inspector come along and whatever, do their bit. The opportunity to get involved in a broader sense on delivering on some of these challenges, you know, if we've got to have 300,000 homes a year, you know, you'll know following the Amersham by-election, there's still a lot of people unconvinced on that. There's a lot of people who are waiting for homes, but there's a lot of people who don't want homes building. So you've got to have people involved in, you know, basically sort all of that side of things out, leveling up, building back better, net zero, infrastructure. There's so much going on, but as I keep saying, and maybe sound like a broken record, so many people just don't know about it, these opportunities. So, you know, collectively, I think that's why this conversation today is great, because you've got a broad spectrum here about how can we draw the next generation in, because we're going to need to, because we were already on a bit of a cliff edge demographic wise, and that was before we exited the EU. So we've got these double whammies of these macro scale, you know, people moving back to different countries for work. We've got an aging construction industry, and then you've got a need to make it more diverse. Well, if you join the dots, sorry, Rebecca, I'm taking your chief dot maker name there, but if you join the dots and tell the story, I'm really confident who wouldn't want to work in an industry like this at this current time?
Agreed. Well, I'm already sold. And Rebecca, we've got one here from Rachel Jagger Thomas, who says 2019, the ONS information showed that less than 2% of PMES professionals in England and Wales are female. Less than 2%.
I'm going to look at Victoria. PMES, has that got planning at the front of it?
Well, this is a new acronym on me. I can guess it's Project Management Environmental Strategy. I don't know. Rachel, take us out of our misery, please.
Yeah. And Rachel, whilst you do reply, it's just appalling. But the thing that gives me hope, I mean, A is people. Yeah, but I think we are genuinely getting more and more support, more and more people saying we must make changes, but how do we do it? And there is that warmth, that desire, that passion, and the younger generation is simply just not going to stand for it. And I think climate change is a huge opportunity. When you say, you know, come into construction and build, image is terrible. If you say, do you want to do something about the future of our planet, and the built environment is, you know, one of the biggest ways to make that change, they listen to that. For me, one of the biggest opportunities is around social value and social impact. So when I started in industry, it was all about environmental sustainability. That was, you know, the big agenda. And then it became I went to instant and injury free, so health and safety, CSR, corporate social responsibility. And now everybody's talking about social value, social impact, ESG, another good acronym, you know, environmental, social governance. And this, I'd be interested to know what the other members of the panel think, because when you have a client who says, we want to have X% of people in this workforce that are from this background, or from, you know, that have these particular characteristics against them, that gets driven through the supply chain. Now, the problem is if there's no actual practical tool, the supply chain to use. So they'll say, yeah, we definitely want to recruit more women. How do we do this? So I think the driver coming through, particularly on the big public procurement frameworks, particularly from the enlightened clients, and I do think there is scope certainly the local authorities have this in their planning obligations. They have what's called the Section 106, where they can mandate X amount of apprentices, X amount of people from Black, Asian, minority, ethnic heritage, etc. All of that can be done. But it's a top-down industry, and I really think there's an opportunity to actually drive these requirements alongside the answer. And I'd be quite interested to know if other people agree with me about having some, not so much targets, but actually, sort of legislation. There is a requirement, this must change. And it's not a tick box, it's the right person, the right competent person, but you must consider widening your message, widening the audience for those opportunities.
Indeed. Uma, what do you think?
Yeah, so I agree with all of them, what they're saying, and I am actually myself very hopeful. I think that although we are...
Uma's frozen out. Has everybody got Uma frozen?
But I always look towards something that's happening. If nothing is happening, then we'll be worried. We'll be thinking why there isn't anything happening. But I think with bringing in competent workforce, as Rebecca said, in terms of having an aging construction industry, but bringing more technology towards this, as Victoria mentioned, but not technology just at the professional level, but also towards even at the skill level, how they're getting skilled. And by training, we can solve a lot of things by bringing in more sort of gender equality, by bringing in more diverse workforce towards this, by training people towards having the competent works within the construction industry is absolute. I see that from the perspective of how the people are coming in the industry for training, etc. Post Brexit, it doesn't look good. So there is a lot that we need to do. Apprenticeships initiative is very good. I think it is going towards the right side. Technology within construction is going to be one of the biggest factors that's going to have or help in this cause by bringing or shortening this sort of gap within diversity. That I could see that.
Now, just finally, we won't be able to probably get an answer on this because we're running out of time, but this is from Serena. He said, I think we need to change the perception of construction and engineering. Having volunteered in STEM activities, numerous school career advisors don't understand what engineering is or what it entails, as the engineering is too broad, whereas in Europe, France, Germany, Spain, engineering is seen as a prestigious title, and it's more 50-50 in Europe. And I think this is another thing really that kids go to, well, they're 18 now, or when they're 16, will probably go to their school's careers day, and all of a sudden they'll be shown these things that they're just in construction anyway, well, they've never seen before. So how can they choose it is what I think. But I really am sorry about everybody that didn't get their messages read out. I don't know if we can do anything about replying to them anyway. But thank you so much to everyone that's been tuned in. And of course, thanks to my guest today, which is Uma Mansour from Construction Helpline. Thank you, Uma. Amos Simbo from Black Professionals in Construction. Great to see you. Rebecca Lovelace from Building People. Victoria Hills, Royal Town Planning. And Christina Dimitriou, a tipper driver, who is absolutely top. I'm so chuffed for her to be in that job that she's in, and I hope she'll inspire many more to take up that role. And I hope you guys will inspire many more people as well to the diversity in our industry is required.
Thank you, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. Good to see you all. Thank you.
Indeed. Good.
Thank you, guys. And we'll keep an eye out for our next webinar, which will be next week. You can join that one. It's 14th of July, and it's looking at procurement contracts and disputes, getting it right to avoid a disaster. So I guess if you've got a fully diverse workforce, you'll probably avoid any kind of disaster. So yeah, let's work towards that. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to you, Nathan, as well.
We'll see you in October as well, Clive.
I hope so. Actually live, physical, meet people.
Exactly. See you then.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Come, Chase.